In a time that can feel nationally divided, comfort can be found growing right down the street. Urban farms build communities and nourish neighborhoods across the country, and Reno, Nevada has its own biggest little gardens. I sat down with 3 urban farmers at Black Rabbit, a mead company that sources local honey for its meat and specialty drinks. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Allie Dixon, and I am a graduate student at the Reynolds School of Journalism through the University of Nevada, Reno. And I am just so excited to be sitting with you farmers today. We all know that community is just so important for so many reasons, and the farms that you are creating and working on in Reno are community safe spaces for neighbors and for families, and just for folks of all ages and stages. So thank you for all the work that you've done. I know, especially in today's world, it can be hard to feel full sometimes, whether that's metaphorically feeling full of connection to your neighbors or like literally full trying to make dinner at the end of the day. But the great thing about this conversation is instead of talking about problems, we get to talk about the solutions that you're creating. So as we have our little mocktails here, we're going to just kind of nestle in and get to talk about local food systems and how they are creating community. So to kick things off, I'll let you all introduce yourselves. Okay. If you want to give just your name, the farm, and maybe your favorite vegetable.
I'm Kelsey Hoffman, Community Programs Director at Urban Roots. And favorite vegetable right now is a sweet potato.
I'm Rebecca Stetson. I'm the Executive Director of Farmally, and I would say that my favorite vegetable right now are beets, thanks to this tahini, maple syrup, orange juice dressing and roasting them. Very good. Yeah. I'll send it to you guys. Yes.
Hello, I'm Nina Vargas. I work for DFI with their Indigenous Food Sovereignty Program. I'm Choctaw, so that's my connection. And my favorite vegetable is artichokes.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much again for being here. And to jump right in, the first question is, who does your farm support? And from the time the farm came into existence, how has that changed or maybe not changed over time?
So Farmally is 8 years old this May, and we started at just one Boys and Girls Club location, and so we were serving about 40 kids a week, teaching them out of the gardens, and growing. That garden is pretty decent size. I would say it's like 1/5 of an acre. It's a small garden, but it's like a big home garden. And so all the food that we grew would go to the front of the Boys and Girls Club, and families would take it home at the end of the day. And so present day, we have 3 gardens. We teach 3 classes every week out of the gardens. Then we have 3 cooking classes that we teach every week. And then we have family nights and some other programming. But our largest garden is about an acre. And we distribute food to food insecure families, not just through the Boys and Girls Clubs, but also through Food Pantry, through Food Not Bombs, and through some other organizations that do food sovereignty work.
So the Indigenous Food Sovereignty Program came about in roughly 2020 when COVID hit and we got the food scarcity that really shocked a lot of communities. And for us, it was specifically for our tribal communities. Students would come to UNR, wouldn't have connection to what they knew. It was a big, scary place. And it was kind of started as a place where they could feel like they were at home. And they could still have connection to all those medicinal herbs that they're used to, all those vegetables, fruits that they're used to, and not feel so overwhelmed by the hustle and bustle of the city. Because I know I'm from the city, and I still feel all the overwhelmingness of the hustle and bustle of the city. And it's changed a lot over the years. It started off kind of as the herbs, making sure they had connection to our medicinal plants, and being able to go to a place to practice and not have to worry about scrutiny from the outside, because unfortunately it's still there. Ever so often you'll get to see it. And now it's more turned into a place where we grow our fruits and vegetables for our Indigenous students and staff, And we have this big feast at the end of the year with everything we've grown called the Papatuka. And it's kind of just to recognize all the hard work that our students have done, all the hard work that our staff has done throughout the years, and give them a place to celebrate all of us together.
We've been around for about 16 years. We had a farm location on West 4th Street that Rebecca was our farm manager for a little while at. And it really started around outdoor education for kids. And so for a while that was a summer camp and a homeschool program, a pre-K program, supporting schools and teachers with getting their gardens going. And then in 2016, we moved over to 2nd Street. We're just around the corner from Renown Hospital on their property, and we have a teaching farm where we host camp, field trips, workshops, all kinds of things. But we really saw a change in 2020 as well of more and more adults reaching out of like, I want to grow food, how do I do it? I don't know where to start. My kid is asking me to grow radishes. I don't know what to do. And so we changed our mission from kid focused to more a broader age group. And so that's expanded to include a garden program that will go and build a garden for someone's home or a community garden, school garden. And then now we do gardening and cooking workshops for adults as well. Yeah, we do a lot of different programs, but I guess it's also expanded. We partner with Hope Springs, which is a transitional living community on 4th Street, and do gardening and cooking with their residents. And then we staff and stock the Renown prescription food pantry on 2nd Street and bring them produce from the farm.
Well, it sounds like things have shifted, have moved, but all with really great intention over the years. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, we talked about it a little bit about how the changes were to support communities. How have you seen your either original initiatives or ever-changed initiatives bridge communities or bring people together?
I think I could start on this one. I believe when Lance Owaihi first started the program, it was mainly just for the tribes within the area, for Washoe, Paiute, Shoshone. It's just making sure those students had connection. And over the years, it's kind of grown into more of a broad term of Indigenous, because we know individuals who are born and raised in Mexico, they're technically Indigenous. They're Indigenous folks. And it's kind of making sure that they also have representation in our farm, because a lot of times they come to us. We started growing tomatillos this year. We're super excited about that. We grew yellow pears last year, and they were super excited to see that we had finally started growing yellow pear tomatoes. And it's just making that connection, because it started off super specific, and now we're slowly branching out into the broad effect of, well, what type of communities do we want to support? What type of communities do we see who need support? Because when I said earlier that they're coming from a place where these things aren't normal, these aren't their everyday routine, it's really scary. And we see that with the percentage of Indigenous folks who stay at UNR for their degrees, who do graduate and who do continue. It's a very low number because it's extremely overwhelming. You leave your home behind, you're expected to conform to this super specific idea that the world wants you to see in, and you just want to be at home. And that's what our focus now is on, is making sure they have a safe space to be at home. If they want more information on how to grow plants outside of their home, in their little apartments, we're trying to do more stuff on that. And we're also expanding outreach to our own communities, like the Stewart Indianship School. They have a couple plants they are asking us to do seedlings on this year that we will be able to give to them, and they'll be able to grow their own food over there. And we're super excited to start that little program.
And could you share how much it costs for folks to get seedlings or food?
For the Indigenous program, the Indigenous Food Sovereignty Program, we give them out for free as long as you are Indigenous. And 9 times out of 10, we'll be like, hey, as long as you help us with donations, because funding is a huge thing right now. Everybody's feeling the little issues with it. Yeah. We're just willing to give stuff out. There are specific foods, specific plants that we're kind of we want to keep this within our culture, but our our peppers, our beans, our corn. We have more than enough seeds. We're more than willing to give stuff out like that. And we're also trying to create little pamphlets too that we can send you home with, being like, this is the planting period. This is how you need to start watering them when they're little seedlings. And this is how you need to take care of them going forward. Because it's not common knowledge, unfortunately, of like how you take care of these things. I've killed 1 or 2 plants on my own. And it's really helpful to have these little things that we send home with the students, with the staff. And we have students and staff who come back every year and they bring friends with them. And that's what we're looking forward to, is they bring somebody new every year. I get to see new faces every year, which is super awesome.
A lot of the families that we're seeing who apply for, it's called our Gardening for All program, have been coming to camp, or a farm school family, or little gardeners. And so then they get to get a garden at their home. We show up, we build a garden with them. We're very much like teaching the littles how to use the drills and everything. And then it includes a year of our support. So they get to get into our Gardening 101 classes for free. We do a couple like parties on the farm for them so they can get to know each other and build some, camaraderie around like being a beginner gardener for the first time. And then we go and do check-ins at their house so they can kind of get some, their questions answered as they try to navigate growing in this tricky climate. But that's been a really great thing where they're like, oh my gosh, Farmer Cat has been to my house, about one of the teachers. They're like bragging to their friends at camp. So I think like that piece about being educators and like going and being a part of someone's home and like creating something for them has been like a really special opportunity.
And education is so integral at Farmily too, especially with the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. So I started an organic farm in Stagecoach, Nevada, between Silver Springs and Dayton. And it was really fascinating. I'd never lived in a culture of poverty or in a food desert. And so it was a super fascinating experience. And so as I was farming, it's not, what we were doing was not lucrative enough to just be a farmer. So then I picked up a job as a community health advocate with Healthy Communities Coalition in Lyon County. And so that was like a really neat introduction. And then working in the school gardens in Lyon County, it was like, I remember I had a group of 4th graders and I was asking like, where does milk come from? And a lot of them did not know that milk came from a cow, even though we were in like an agricultural area. And so that like really shaped a lot of what came later. When I came to Urban Roots, it was because I wanted to do more of that. I wanted to move back into Reno. I was a little fatigued from farming for 10 years and from living in rural Nevada. And so that was a wonderful experience. And then when I was able to start Farmily, I really wanted to meet a demographic of kids who normally would not be able to access any type of garden education. And so it's been amazing. It's like 85% of kids who are part of the Boys and Girls Club of Truckee Meadows are part of free and reduced lunch, so they're in poverty. And when I was working as a community health advocate, what I learned was that if you are in poverty, you will be disproportionately affected by trauma. And as a result of that, you will then be twice as likely to have heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all sorts of not just physical afflictions, but also mental health afflictions, addiction. And so with that knowledge, I was like, okay, I really want to start a program that will be focused in social emotional learning and give our students some practical skills around how they can manage their emotions. How can we teach them interpersonal skills? Can we teach them conflict resolution? And so it's been super rewarding to continue fine-tuning that over the years. And it's wild just how in our small city, it's like we can be at one Boys and Girls Club location and have a completely different atmosphere or culture compared to one that is a mile and a half away, just based on there being more affluence and more economic opportunity in that close of an area. So that's been really fascinating too, is like having a program that is very nimble to be able to meet the needs of lots of different students. Bringing this idea to lots of people, like everyone should have fair access to food that is nourishing and medicine, as opposed to, in food deserts where I was, in Stagecoach, is like there were people eating out of the convenience store, and that was their main source of food. So I'm super proud of all the work collectively that we've done.
I can speak to that with Hope Springs. So these are clients who are enrolled in like a 6 to 8 month program through the clinic, but they have housing for that amount of time. They can like get all their healthcare needs like taken care of. They're meeting with different like outpatient therapy groups, and the goal is to really transition them to stable housing. But we do weekly cooking and gardening with residents there, and they like those two things a lot. But the one that's been most surprising to me is everyone's like really excited and has the most questions about the bees. So I'm like the beekeeper over there, and everyone is so interested and wanting to like help and be in it. And this one guy over there, he was helping me like lift up some boxes and stuff. He's like, I just love the bees. It's like, I get this adrenaline rush when I'm around them. Like, it's like getting high, but it's like it's the safe version, I'm like, okay, yeah. But just like, I hadn't really, I feel very calm when I'm working with the bees. It's almost like you're rock climbing or something, because you're like really focused, and it is a little scary. You're trying to like stay really calm. But that's something that has just kind of like happened with a lot of the residents there. And I've been surprised how many are really invested of like, what's the queen up to? Like, how are the bees? How are our girls? Like, they name them. And I think like just being in a beautiful space in that location, sure, it's right next to the train tracks. It's on 4th Street. There's a lot going on, but it's a very safe and welcoming environment for people, and they do a great job of building community over there and making everyone feel really welcome. So we're very excited to have partnered with them now for like 5 years. So, yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the beauty of it too. Like you are in the middle of an urban area, and you still have like this beautiful safe haven where folks can explore their interests and levels of adrenaline, I guess, what have you. Well, the successes that each farm has is like undeniable. They're rampant in the most beautiful ways. So when it comes to challenges, if you've ever had either hardships with funding, or with the scale of farming, or with a particular plant or aphids, what have you. How has your, maybe a lot of aphids, how has your community been there to support you in hard times?
It made me laugh because I remember having a staff who was like, but I don't feel comfortable squashing them. I was like, all right, you're on another job today. I'm squashing squash bugs today, right? Because it's just like something that you have to do. But with our program, because we don't see the same kids every week. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we get to see the same kid for several grades, like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and they're like our guardian champions. They start teaching, but a lot of times we have transiency, and so one of our challenges is like, how do we immediately create rapport with a child, especially when we have a high population of kids who normally, may have more behavioral issues than the average set of kids. And so I feel like we have been able to create like an amazing program for an hour lesson that takes kids and really gives them the ability to slow down and to just be whatever they're going to be. And one of my favorite ways that we manage our classroom is if we have a child who is having a hard time, we keep a really low teacher to student ratio. So we have 1 educator for every 5 students. And that allows us to take a child out of the lesson and to just like hold space with them. It's like such a privilege. And I feel like it's a really cool way also. That's the beauty of our program, is showing them like, oh, I just need to take 10 4-count box breaths and go tell the person who is teasing me, like, it really hurts my feelings when you talk to me like that. and I just want you to talk nicely to me. And to get them to that point where they have the courage to say that instead of just that constant bickering that normally happens of like, you said this to me, I'm hurt, so I'm going to say this, mean thing to you again. We don't say this to the kids, but often with breathwork, if with adults, I'm like, yeah, you can get high on your own supply, like we hope the kids have no idea what that means, but it's definitely that same dynamic of like, yeah, you manage your emotions, like you're in control of this. And I feel like I wish all of us had had the privilege of that when we were younger instead of, so I hope every child gets that education.
Yeah, it's hard to pick one. There's a myriad of different levels. I think funding is a whole large thing that we could talk about for a very long time. It's a hustle, and it's a hustle trying to like make your programs fit into the money that you're applying for, to find like appropriate partners, all the things. But I think I was trying to think of a small example where I guess like 3 years ago we had both plastics off of our hoop house like fly off in the winter time, and we're able to just do some crowd funding quickly, through social media to raise like a couple $1,000s and get that just like taken care of with I think Jenny, our executive director, her daughter made a little video, and it was perfect. So I think where community comes in is when there's a need that needs to happen like right away. I think we've often been able to like jump in and do something about it. Like maybe it's not perfect, or like maybe we'll look back and be like, was that the right approach to that problem? But I think we've created just a good support system of folks that are willing to jump in and show up when it's needed. Like I'll come back to the bees again, but like the bees need things right away. You're like, oh no, you're in the hive. They need this like today. And so as do plants, as do children, like they need that time and attention when it's most inconvenient, right? And I think I went to a conference recently and they were saying how like efficiency is the enemy of connection, or the enemy of intimacy. And so when you would put in there like what's one word you would describe for community, oftentimes it's inconvenient. we have these times where we want to be isolated on our own schedules, on my own time, and usually when something needs to be done, there's some degree of discomfort for showing up for like a sick friend, or, oh, I've got to go take care of that plant right now, or this child is having a total breakdown, I need to just go sit with them. But I think that's what I keep trying to call back to is like, okay, in order to really show up and be in community, it is uncomfortable,
Yeah, I feel you on the hoop houses. We lost one at DFI over the winter and we were like, no. It was heartbreaking. There's so many. It's just which one to pick from. The funding always been a huge issue for us. I guess one that I can pull from is ever so often we'll butt heads with the university. Unfortunately, UNR does not have a good track record with our tribes. So ever so often people will see us coming and reaching out to the community and they'll be like, oh, you're UNR. No, thank you. And we'll have to be like, okay, we don't follow under them. We promise. And we've had to start creating these little programs where we're like, if you don't want us to share this information, just let us know. Just let us know. And it slowly started building more connections where they were like, yeah, we want to do this. We want to do that. We want to do this, but we're worried about sharing it out and it getting taken advantage of, like elderberries. We saw a huge elderberry boom over COVID, and a lot of our normal gathering spots are now depleted, or we'll go on to a trail and we'll do our gatherings and we'll have people coming up to us being like, you're not allowed to do that. You don't know what you're doing. And we have to explain to them, like, this is our program. And it's making those connections with the tribes to be like, hey, can we come on to your guys' land? Can we do a little field trip with you guys just to learn a little bit more and get a little extra support? Because sometimes it's a little bit of chaos and it's an uncomfortable conversation to have to sit down and with people and being like, well, this is what it's for. This is why we don't share this information. Because ever so often I'll get a friend who's not a part of my Indigenous community who will be like, well, why are you sharing this information with the community? This is huge. And I'll have to be like, oh, unfortunately, some people take advantage of it because it sucks. The people who take advantage of the kindness kind of taint the journey going forward. And it puts up barriers. And our whole program is about breaking down those barriers and making sure our communities get the support we need. And we're able to get a little and then give back as much as we possibly can, which is the whole point I'm trying to drive forward with my time with the program is you give us just a little bit of help, we'll give you as much help as we possibly can. And it's gone a long ways. Like, it took me forever to get connected with the Stewart Indian colony, the Stewart Indian schools. And once we finally had that connection, they were like, oh, we thought you were with UNR. And we're like, no. As much as I love UNR as a school, because they helped me grow so much as a first-gen student, I can definitely see the disconnect with our tribes. And they're trying to correct it. You can see the little steps they're taking, but it's going to be a long time for that trust. Yeah, unfortunately.
One of the things that I feel that I've been thinking a lot about is when all of us saw, like a lot of loss of federal funding last year where everything had to be sent back to be scrubbed for diversity, equity, and inclusion language. It just made me think something that I've thought for a long time, but I feel like in past generations, there was this standard of like tithing, right? And it usually happened to your church, but people were super comfortable with taking 10% of all that they had and giving it benevolently for the good of their community. And I think that as Americans, we've like chalked it up to like, I pay taxes, so I'm doing my community good. And one thing that I wish that we could really change culturally is people remembering that there's the helper's high, right? That like giving feels good, and the giving is the gift to the giver, not just the receiver. And if we had a community, like all of our programs would be overfunded if our community even considered giving, 0.5% of what their wealth was. And so that's an initiative that I hope to be able to work on once my 2-year-old is a little bit bigger, is like really activating the community and reminding people like, okay, you don't have time to volunteer, but you make money. And it feels good, right? Like it feels good to be part of something. And it takes, it takes a whole community to create the beautiful things that we're doing. And it would make it possible for so much more to happen if just like a little was put into that pot.
Yeah, DFI had to have that uncomfortable conversation last year with all the funding that got cut. A couple of us had to have that conversation of what about positions? Like I was at the bottom of the food chain and I'm like, if you have to cut me, but I will not leave. And it was scary for Jill, unfortunately. She didn't want to have that conversation. Right. But at the same time, it was reassuring that like, hey, I'm not going to just leave because you can't pay me. It's really nice that I get paid. I appreciate it. But I'm not just going to leave. And I think establishing those connections, being like, hey, we're not just doing it to get paid. We're doing it for the cause. We're doing it to boost our community. Because there were a couple winters ago where our food in some local supermarkets was just gone. It was whatever was canned was left on the shelf. And I think that's what woke me up, was being like, whoa, I might not be able to feed my family if something's not going to come over the pass.
We're really one scary snowstorm of the past being closed away from being hungry. Yeah.
Yep. These are really great answers. And although it's unfortunate to have challenges, I feel like it's just a testament to how powerful community is for food systems. If you could share one message about the power of local food, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question, because there are so many things you could touch on. I think going back to our main topic that we've kind of dipped our toes into is the community. Mm-hmm. Like our whole thing with Papaduka is bringing together our community. So any of our tribal members who are up in Reno Sparks for the weekend, we ask them to come up. Any of our students who haven't gone home, getting ready to go home for the winter holidays or the fall holidays, just to come up and spend time and just be grateful that we have this opportunity. Somebody took a chance on us and let us be able to build our own little garden, and to be able to have that experience from Garrett, to be able to have that experience from Jill, to be able to have that experience from Matt was huge, because I wouldn't have known where to start. at all whatsoever. So it was nice that my community stepped up and was like, this is what you do. Here's how we can help. If you need anything else, don't hesitate to reach out to us. So that's the same way with the tribes. Ever so often, we will run out of gathering on one spot and we won't want to go back to it, just to let it replenish, to let it do its thing, make sure the animals still have that opportunity to go and get their own resources. So we don't want to steal, and just to have other parts of the community being like, hey, this is this spot, we have this spot. And it's so helpful because 9 times out of 10, it's students running this program. Like, we're at a very odd point right now where I'm one of the very few coordinators who hasn't been a student during their time. And you're super busy. You got to get classes done. You have other commitments like your clubs. Sometimes students have families. Sometimes we want to go back home to their families. Sometimes they have their own children. And it can be super difficult to ask them to go out and look at this spot and see if they can go. So to have the community come forward again to be like, we've been here, this is a good spot, or we've been here, it's really plentiful, or like, we've been here, don't go there, it still needs to have time to replenish.
Yeah, local food, local community, it's all super important. I always go back to the idea of like that we're voting with our dollars, and politically, geopolitically, like whatever we want to look at, we have a huge amount of ability to shape what our existence looks like, and a lot of that is simply by using our dollars. And it is such a privilege to like get to go to the farmer's market, and even though we're growing food, to be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get carrots from my friend here today, and I'm gonna get, kale from DFI, and to just know that, yeah, sometimes maybe I'm spending a little bit more for something, but also that I know that that's creating health and resiliency of my community when I decide to like skip convenience and do what is investing into our part of the world.
Yeah, I think we, encounter a lot of families who are just trying to get started with whether it's growing food or, cooking in a different way or cooking in a more healthy way. And I think that can feel really overwhelming. There's like so much wellness health information on the internet that's just like, it's very trendy right now, right? But I think just advising people to start with like what you have and like go from there, like keep it really simple, whether that's like growing something in your window in a yogurt container, or your kid loves butter pasta. Can they also try, you can throw some peas in there, just something simple. I think families also feel like they have to just like do it all, right? And like feel so much pressure to try to, raise their young people well, which of course, but I think we can keep it simple and like accessible, and also like ground people in the traditions that they already have, like, did your grandmother have a garden? Did your tia have a garden? Like, it's already all there. We have so many communities with rich agricultural traditions and, medicinal and herbal as well. So it's like, what do you already have, and assume that the people that we're working with like have a story in there about food already. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Help wake it up.
Yeah, it's there.
Help wake it up. That's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I'm so grateful for all the work that you're doing, for taking time out of your days to come here, but for really just shaping communities all over Reno. I also want to thank the University of Nevada, Reno, my advisor, Jennifer Kent, Nico Columbant, Lydia Huerta, Bryant Nagelson, Black Rabbit Meat Company, and zero thanks go to the squash bugs.
No thanks. I'm sure they serve a purpose, but I don't know what it is yet.